We're gonna talk about the movie Drive with Ryan Gosling
Yeah,
today.
buddy.
We're, so everybody's here. Who wants to explain what the movie was about? Just in a you know simple way.
I think Yoon should do it. He did a good job last week or last
Oh,
time.
okay. You does it again.
Okay. Um. Actually, let's have Brandon since he recently watched it. Since it's the freshest for him.
Okay.
Um, okay, so the movie is about um, a nameless driver. I think he's only referred to as the driver in the movie. You never learn his name. And it's played by Ryan Gosling, and he's a stunt driver for like movies. But the way we're introduced to him in the movie is like he also like moonlights as a driver for typically like sketchy situations, like criminals, and basically is hired to just like be a driver for these criminals in like whatever they're doing. He basically gives them 5 minutes and basically does whatever he can to get them from point A to point B. And it's also like slowly hinted at that through that he has like a pretty violent past, but we don't necessarily get the extent of that. And ultimately, like in the movie, he becomes involved with this woman who lives next door to him and that woman's kid, and over time gets into like this kind of shady situation with that woman's with the father of that woman's kid.
Or her
And
husband.
well, they never say they're married, do they?
They do.
Oh,
She mentions that that's her husband.
she does. Oh yeah, okay.
I think so.
Yeah, and also I'm realizing Bryan Cranston says like he says like I know people who have like gotten involved with married men, but you're the only person who
Right.
would actually like get involved and to pay the husband. But yeah, he basically gets involved with the husband, and things kind of go shady. And he has to deal with things like related to the mob and stuff.
Right.
And it's just yeah, things just go bad.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
That's about it. I don't know.
So who had like
Uh-huh.
because I want to ask Albert like just your impressions, because you had said
Yeah.
Yeah.
it was weird, but like had any of you guys watched it before?
No.
So I've seen it like a couple days, but I saw it again. So I guess my second viewing, but it's like in a span of
within
like
a
2
short
weeks.
span. Yeah.
So not really like before, yeah.
Okay. Well, I have.
Mm.
Yeah. I watched it, a few years ago. And I think it was released in 2011.
Yeah.
Is that right?
It's 9
So,
years
yeah.
old.
Yeah, so that makes sense because I watched it like 2014, I think, and it was like kind of old back then. So, yeah, I watched it before.
And obviously...
Yeah, I had seen it a couple times.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I saw it the last time I saw it. I'm pretty sure it was like 2012. No, it wouldn't have been 20. Well, actually, it must have been. It was probably 2013 actually, because I remember watching it like my freshman year of college with like my dorm mates and stuff. But I'm pretty sure at that point I was rewatching it.
Oh.
So I've seen it like a couple times, but that was still like the last time I saw it was, I mean, at this point, shit, yeah, like 7 years ago.
Right.
So it's been a long, long time. But it's, I mean, it's also just like, like a lot of people talk about it, and it's like I remember that people would talk about it fucking nonstop on Reddit when I used to like go on Reddit a lot.
Oh.
Oh, really?
Oh, so Reddit fad or something.
It's not like a fad, but it was just definitely one
Uh-huh.
of those movies that was like, oh, this like really great like hidden gem, which is like,
Hidden
no,
gem.
dude, I mean, it's not really a fucking hidden gem, but like, I just meant like if every fucking boy
Uh-huh.
on Reddit is talking about it, it's like,
Mm.
I mean, you know, it's like sort of like an
Uh-huh.
art house action movie, but like I think it's, you know, most people have who like I guess
Mhm.
like movies have heard about it. But
Mm.
yeah, I remember they would like it became like a meme
Mhm.
about the the song in the movie. Like the
Yeah.
one that's kind of like that like
Mhm. Like the
synth
80s
pop
synth.
one.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Cause like I remember like the meme was basically like because it's the line is like real human being.
Yeah,
Mhm.
real
Real hero, and people would
superhero
always
or
say like real
something.
human being,
Uh,
something like that. Yeah, so like, but yeah, it was the first time I watched it in a long time though, so that was interesting to sort of think about.
Mhm.
I don't know how my tastes have changed or how
Mhm.
mm.
just the type of moviegoer I am
Mm.
rewatching it.
Yeah, is there something you could kind of articulate from there, like differences in the two viewings? Something you picked up
I
this
mean,
time, or?
I think like, so I mean, personally, I guess I mean it's kind of boring, but like I remember thinking about it a lot because in college, like I was I was like a film studies minor, so like I was always trying to like figure out how to like watch stuff, and that there was like this really great YouTube channel
Mm.
Mhm.
um called Every Frame a Painting. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it.
Yeah, I've
It's a,
seen it. It's
it's
amazing.
really great. Yeah, he's
It's amazing.
so good.
Yeah.
He doesn't make any more videos, but like you guys should check it out. It's like such
Mhm.
a great channel.
Mhm.
But it's basically
Okay.
this guy. I think it's actually like a couple, but like this guy does these like video essays um
Mhm.
just about film, and they're like very wide ranging, but they're just very like well thought out. They're just really well put together, and he did one on Drive, like a short one on Drive that talked about like the quadrant system.
Yeah, like the
um
compositions of
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. um which was great, and I just remember watching it at that and being like, fuck man, like I feel like I wish I was like better at understanding this stuff,
Mhm.
Can you
even though
explain
I
that? Can you
so
explain
like
that a
yeah,
little bit? The
basically
quadrant
yeah,
system?
like in the video, I mean it's it's just boring. I feel like you guys should just watch it, but like basically like in the video he talks about how so many of kind of like you mentioned, like so many of the shots in the film are like so meticulously and carefully composed,
Mhm.
um and um specifically how Refn, the director, like plays with the quadrant system, which is essentially just like breaking the screen up into four squares, right? Like top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right, and how he will like block certain shots
Mm.
that will um, make what you will basically be unpredictable, based on what you are assuming you're going to see in ways that you probably don't even realize. Because like so like one very like simple example was like there's a scene where he basically just like comes out of the door, and he's framed in the top left, and
Mhm.
he's looking at something across the hall, and you assume that um the the reverse shot of the person that he's presumably looking at is going to be in the top right, but he frames it bottom right. And that, I mean, that's like a very simplistic
Mm.
example, but he just plays a lot with the quadrant system in ways that like basically makes the shots more dynamic,
Mm.
because he is playing with what your eyes subconsciously are going to assume.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
So
but
is
also
that
but also just like the ways that the ways that he frames things in different parts of the quadrant that like just have these sort of like visual storytelling within them. Like there was one where in the beginning, like the very first scene where the driver and I forgot what Carey Mulligan's name is. The
Irene.
Irene, yeah, like they're like in the elevator and then they
Yeah.
go to their respective rooms. Like in that shot, like if you split it in half, you basically get two. I think he's basically like you get two different stories of the characters, just the way that it's framed, because one character's on one side, one character's on the other side, but then they turn different directions down the hall and then flip sides on the see like when I explain it, it's kind of stupid because you have to see it to understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But it's just it's basically just the cinematography is great. I know it's very boring and like that
No,
was
I think you did a really great job of explaining it. Like,
Yeah.
if you
like
block off certain,
you've seen it, Yoon, that video.
yeah, I've seen that exact video, and I actually saw it. I think like skimmed through. I watched all his videos, and I didn't see Drive
Oh.
before, so this is actually kind of like interesting.
Oh
But
yeah, it's crazy because
Yeah.
like I rewatched it because I was like I can't believe the last time I watched this I was like in college and I'm just like I was just curious about like how I view things now. But when I was also quickly like scrolling through and I didn't even notice he had one on Memories of Murder and he had one on Mother.
Yeah, I
And I
think he
was like
did both.
shit, I didn't end up watching it, but I should have.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, he also had one on Snowpiercer about the different
Oh
profile
really?
shots.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh wow.
it's super interesting.
Mm.
But yeah, the coordinate system is interesting. Like as Brandon was explaining, if you actually block off certain the parts of the coordinate, you get like different stories from each of them.
Oh.
I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah.
the cool effect about it. And
Okay.
one thing that wasn't mentioned there, but I noticed this time is like when they go grocery shopping, it's Irene and the driver.
Yeah.
And at the end, it shows just him, like going to his car with his groceries, and then it just like pans over to Irene with like her car's
Broken
like busted
car.
up, her engine,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
And then he does a quadrant right there as well, with like the top left and bottom right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like these things. Most directors don't really incorporate it in their movies, so it's super cool to see someone like use a lot of the technical skills.
Mm.
And like in
Yeah.
a movie that's plot is kind of like, the plot's really not too interesting, but like how they shoot it, the cinematography, the color scheme and everything is just amazing.
Mm.
Yeah, like this guy, like Refn, I
Refn.
was surprised that I was just looking at his filmography and I'm like, I've actually watched like quite a few of his stuff.
Really?
And it's like most of his stuff is like just highly stylized, and it is like I think that video was just a great example of like, oh, you might not like when you're watching it, you can't tell like what it is that makes what you're watching feel so have such a pulse, I guess, and have such a like a dynamism to it, but like that kind of stuff. Because I rewatched the YouTube video before I rewatched it this time,
Okay.
and this time just like watching the movie, I'm just like constantly like trying to pay attention to that. And it's interesting to like have that context to sort of like try and understand why things just feel different to you without you knowing why, but yeah, like his stuff, like I've seen Bronson, which is like a early Tom Hardy movie, and Valhalla Rising and Only God Forgives. And Only God Forgives is like very like insanely stylized. The cinematography is like insane, but it was also just like it's a much more like abstract film, like that's a little bit harder to like get into. I just remember watching it the one time when it came out and I was like, shit, dude, that like I need to rewatch that to understand what's going on. But
Oh man.
yeah, but anyways,
so his filmography is like kind of similar, like art housey, super stylized, and very cool.
Yeah, and like heavy on like symbolism and stuff, and very like I mean he's for sure. I mean, if anything, more than anything, I'd say it's like just like gratuitous violence. I think, which I think was a little bit
too much.
I think this time I felt like I think I'm a little bit different than I was when I watched it
Mm.
those many years ago, because I think it is one of those movies that, like, especially in college, it does feel like, damn, this is so. I mean, it's a great film, but like it's like so cool and it's so bloody and
Yeah.
like gory and like. And now when I watch it, I'm just like, I'm not that like I'm like turned off by it, but I was reading about like this scene, the elevator scene, which I think like we should talk about, but like
Oh man,
the
that shit
extent
was
to
weird
which,
too.
yeah, the extent to which he's like leaning into like fucking bashing this guy's face in. It's like, I mean, do we really got to do all of that, bro? Like,
Interesting. Yeah.
I
Yeah, we
heard,
could definitely talk about
Yeah.
that
yeah.
scene.
So I'll stop talking, but
It's a
like,
great scene. Yeah.
I mean, like, why don't you guys tell me, like,
Okay,
Alberto, what was your
okay.
impression?
Yeah. Okay.
For me, it was fucking weird. It was like the weirdest movie. It's in the story plot wise, right?
Mm.
So
okay.
there's this driver. You get introduced to Ryan Gosling, who's a stunt driver, but you get, he's introduced as this heist driver guy where he
Mhm.
just picks up
Right.
people and then gets them anywhere or everywhere they want to, right? As long as they come out in 5 minutes or something, right?
Right.
And
He has a
then
bunch of like.
yeah, and then you find out that he's like a stunt driver who works at a mechanic, right?
Right.
And you're like, oh, so he just does heist as a side job or something, and then and then they're like, oh, Ryan Gosling, you can you're pretty good at driving, I saw you through heist, and you should be a race driver, and then the storyline just fucking goes to like, oh yeah, you're gonna be a racer now. And I'm like,
Mm.
okay, I guess he doesn't have to do heist anymore, right?
Mm.
And you're just like, okay, the story now is like, oh, so from doing bad things, he's gonna race for someone, right? He's doing some honest work or something. And then suddenly it becomes like a whole different movie where like he just kills people. And I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, this is not like a story format you're used to, Like all those movies. There's like, it has a build up for everything, right? I feel like the build up is like it's building up like branches, and then it sprouts out another branch and it ends there.
Right.
It felt like that to me.
Yeah.
That's
Am I-
interesting. I've never heard someone be like specifically talk about how it's like bizarre that he hops from so many different
Yeah.
like.
Uh,
I mean, I guess that I didn't really like it. It just never really
Occurred to
registered to
you?
me. I guess never, because it felt like he's just a mysterious dude and he worked for Bryan Cranston and he just does this shit, and then like I guess to me the starting point is that he is like he's a really great driver and he's fucking really violent,
Yeah.
and then he basically links up with Bryan Cranston and just like is sort of doing like normal stuff as
Mm.
like on the day to day, I guess.
yeah.
But I
Just
didn't think too
enjoyment.
much about whether or not it like makes sense. It just didn't bother me, I guess. But it's interesting to hear that like it doesn't register or it doesn't like.
No, I'm not saying it doesn't make sense. It's just like it's a
weird.
weird
No, I
story
know. I just
build
meant
up.
like that like it messed with your like the way that you were watching the movie.
Yeah, it just goes. It's nothing like the story. It wasn't like something you expected as you watch it. Is how I would put it. It's just like it's doing this and that and like, oh, he's becoming a racer now, and then he just his love's husband died and he's gonna revenge. He's gonna kill the guy Nino, right? It's like, wow,
Right.
he's gonna kill Nino now. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
so when is he gonna be a racer? And the movie ended, and I'm
They're just
like,
I thought this was the
oh.
Fast and Furious sequel.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just like, I mean, even the movie's name is Drive, right? So I
Yeah.
thought it was gonna be something about the drive, and
Uh-huh.
also,
Well, I mean,
Drive could
regardless of what he
mean,
does, it does have to do like it is still him driving. Like
yeah,
even in the
yeah,
criminal
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah. I get that, but I feel like the movie is mostly about his story about revenge. You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's how I
No,
felt.
I kind of like how you describe like the different branches in the story. It's like I do agree because like they never really come back to like the race is kind of just there to I feel like show that he's doing a lot of odd jobs for his boss.
Yeah.
That's just in the grand scheme of things, but like they kind of build up the racing thing. You just kind of expect them to have like maybe this underground racing like bet or something or some kind of thing like that. But they never kind of come back to it. So they just kind of have that there to establish that he's just doing odd jobs.
Well,
But
they
yeah,
also
like how
established the
uh-huh.
connection with like him and like Nino and Bernie, yeah, Bernie,
Bernie.
Albert Brooks or
Yeah.
whatever. But like that's how they know the driver, right? So that it does establish their connection.
That's
Yeah.
true. That's true. It does introduce all of them together.
Yeah, it
Mm.
does, but
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, I would understand like if you kind of just watch this movie without any kind of idea what it is, it's kind of hard to like. It is very unusual. It's not your like like your usual movie or
Yeah.
mainstream movie. I think the director did a lot of shots and things that are very unique, and I could talk about them later. But yeah, the plot as well. Even though the plot's kind of like it's kind of cliche-esque, I would say. It's like kind of like Leon or like the professional Leon in a bit. Like, and
Mm.
it's like those
Mm-hmm.
kind of movies where the main character is like this. He's into like a lot of he's very violent and like, into all these bad things. On the surface, he does like this day job and try to be like um, I guess like undercover in that sense. And then
Yeah.
it's just like him about his love life. I think there's a couple movies that do that. It's just not very
Yeah,
special in
because
that
also like the opening scene, I feel like is
sense.
like kind of sets the tone for what
The
his like
movie?
real what like what he really is about, right?
Right,
Mm.
that's true. Yeah.
Well, what else? Like, I mean, beyond that, did that kind of like color your whole? Like, you're just like, where the fuck is where are the races?
Yeah, I was like, oh, this is a heist movie. Oh, he's gonna be a racer now. Oh, he's killing people. That's how I felt. It's just it's not a normal, not no, I wouldn't say normal, but like it's a unusual way the plot sets up. That's all I wanted to say. It's it's not like those movies where like, oh, it's working on this project and like you keep working on it and then there's a goal and you achieve that goal and the movie's over. It's not like those movies.
I'm just so like I'm so surprised that that's what you like when you said that this was a fucking weird movie. Like when you texted that,
Yeah.
I just didn't suspect that this would be why you were like
Really?
thrown off. Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
Am
I
I
don't
the
know.
weird one who
No,
thought
I'm
that
not saying
No,
you.
no,
the
No.
story is weird?
No, I'm just surprised. Like that's not what I expected when you texted that.
Oh.
Yeah, because I mean, it's
I,
also like fucking
mhm.
like there are other aspects of it that are that might be weirder. I don't know. Like Pyatt, what did you think?
Well, so like as far as like what Albert is saying, like I can understand like what your point of view is because like I think Ryan Gosling's character was like really weird. Like he's like he's just
Yeah.
like so fish out of water for like just like the kind of world that he's in. Like his character, his like personality is like almost meek, like you could say. Like at least that was like my assumption first watching it. Like he's like very stoic, doesn't say like one word to the two guys, you know, robbing, you know,
Mhm.
whatever that was, that warehouse or whatever.
Mhm.
And doesn't say one word to them, gets out of the car, and that's the end of that scene. And then it goes to whatever the next thing is. I forget. But basically from that point on, you kind of assume that he's just like a stoic, kind of like keeps to himself. And then when he's presented to the neighbor, he seems like kind of meek and like soft spoken. And then you just see this like huge like shift in character when he's like brutally like just killing these guys like throughout the movie. So
Mm.
for me, his character was just so strange, and it's kind of epitomized, I guess, by like the ending, and also by like just like the song that like is played in the very beginning and at the very end. It's the same song, I think. Um, it's just like a real human being, a real hero, and it's like he does seem to have like a sort of emotional kind of attunement to like what's going on. So like he is able to like, you know, take Irene and what's the kid's name?
Benicio.
Benicio, right? He's like able to take them on a drive, and like it's actually like very pleasant. Even though at that point we don't know like what kind of violence he's like capable of, he's still like very like, you know, concerned and compassionate, and like all these like different like good virtues.
Yeah.
And it's weird. It's a weird thing. Like he's like a real human being and like a real hero. Like he just like he wants nothing from Irene. Like after he like basically like fights for her protection. Like at the very end, like we know this is named Bernie, Nino's partner,
Yeah,
Mhm.
Bernie.
Yeah.
Albert Brooks or whatever the actor's
Yeah.
name. We know like he like says like he's offering Irene protection and like in exchange for the money, and then like he threatens Ryan Gosling, and like from there like I like just like I've like given up at that point of like reading like what Ryan Gosling's character is gonna do,
Yeah.
because you know he's kind of unpredictable in that way, just like his like shifting character. But from like a strategic point of view, you know that like even if like he is giving him his word, like Bernie's character is just like so like shifty. Like I wouldn't trust anything that he says. So like when he like tries to kill, you know, the driver Ryan Gosling, um, it's just like, yeah, like I would strategically in a strategic point of view, like basically like cutting off all loose ends or whatever. I would probably get rid of that risk, and like he leaves with like no need for any kind of compensation or anything. He like doesn't seek a romantic relationship with Irene, which is kind of weird, and like he
Mhm.
does it purely just to protect her. It's like a completely like purely altruistic deed that he did, and like
Mhm.
the entire movie basically depicts that. So it's just like him being in that world, you know, just capable of like taking down like this like sort of shifty like underground mob that's like popping up, you know, in California, wherever this movie is taking place.
Yeah.
And like he does it single-handedly, just like amazingly so. But then he doesn't ask for anything. It's just like it's a very weird character to like put in there. So like I
Mm.
do kind of see what Albert's kind of saying, and like that was kind of my impression of like
Mm.
the movie. I mean, I like the character. It's just it doesn't. He seemed out of place.
Mm.
Yeah, he does. And
I
Ryan
especially
Gosling doesn't change his face either. It's like, mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
almost emotionless a little bit.
Yeah.
Kind of reminded me of like Keanu Reeves playing Neo.
Yeah.
It's kind of like
Kind of,
not
yeah.
too strong emotions.
Yeah.
But yeah, I liked the you pointed out like his altruism. Like the
Yeah.
last scene, he leaves the money, like
Right.
even though he killed Bernie. And
Right.
I'm guessing he's doing that so there's no ties to him
Yes.
and Irene. So yeah, that's
Absolutely.
completely altruistic
Yeah.
deed that he's done. I think that's a
Yeah.
very interesting thing about his character.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Um, I guess I was just kind of wanted to point out a little bit about like the artistic stylized like color palette of
Mm.
this film. Like I know I'm sure you guys noticed like the bluish like tealish colors with like orange lighting.
Mhm.
And I thought it was, I thought it was interesting. It kind of reminded me of like lightings from like La La Land that Ryan Gosling's also in.
Oh.
And
Mm.
like, so I did a little bit of research and I found out that Refn, the director, most of his films are actually kind of stylized, kind of like how Brandon was talking about. And it
Yeah.
turns out that Refn's actually colorblind. So the reason
Really?
Oh.
he does this stylized is so that he can see these primary colors and the stark contrast. So he could
Wow.
actually
That's
see
so
them.
interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was super interesting. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
and like
yeah.
orange and blue tend to be
Mhm.
um like
Complementary.
complementary colors that are just used a lot in movies because they just look so good on film.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
But that's crazy. Like that he's colorblind. Like
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought that was super interesting. And I thought the original intent was to have this kind of like cyberpunkish vibe. Like I really
yeah.
liked all those driving scenes where it's just him, it's nighttime. It
Yeah.
And you
has
got like
these
that synthy
yeah,
music.
yeah. I
Yeah.
love that. And obviously this takes place in like LA because they show like the him going to
Yeah.
the Clippers game and all that. And it's actually so amazing how he captured that vibe because when I
Yeah.
drive down to San Diego on like number 5, it's like nighttime and I have like the Marias playing. It's like I had the same exact vibe.
Yeah,
Um,
it's like his take on I mean
mm.
people like classify it as like neo noir.
Mm.
So it's
Oh,
kind of
no,
like
no.
a neo noir like neon ish neo noir version of LA, I guess.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah, that's totally makes sense. I really like that kind of like how well he
Yeah.
captured that vibe. So that was kind of like I guess my immediate impressions of like watching this film and like just trying to see like how he like directs different shots. The plot wasn't like that interesting to me. There's
Mm-hmm.
a
Mhm.
lot of cool things he does, like there's a lot of like build-ups with characters. He never really introduces them explicitly, but he would have them in shots like in the background. Like example is like Irene. Irene like comes out from the elevator in the garage before she was even introduced to the audience or Ryan
Mhm.
Gosling for that matter. And it just shows in the background like she's walking up, and then they later
Oh,
show
when was
them
that?
talking.
Oh,
Oh.
really? Is that...
I think
When
this is
when
right
was
after the heist scene. Right after, if I
Oh.
remember
hmm.
correctly. But yeah, like it's kind of like hints. And like one thing I noticed in the heist scene is like he listens to like the NBA game, right? The Clippers Raptors game.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was interesting because like I was like, why? Like, is this kind of like to show off that he could do two things at once? Like he's this amazing
Mhm.
driver. Like, but it's all this build up to show that he's like that was his escape plan to join the
Mm-hmm.
champions.
Yeah, yeah.
And like this was actually kind of foreshadowed in the very initial scene where he's in the apartment. And he's calling,
Yeah.
I guess, with
Show the
the
screen.
robbers. Yeah, yeah. And he has like the television screen that he's watching the game. So he did like these
Yeah.
like little details I kind of liked. They all
Mhm.
like hint at what's gonna come, like a lot of foreshadowing. Thought that
Yeah,
was
that
like
opening
really
scene is
cool.
great too. Like,
Yeah, like I thought the action, the action of the intro and the intensity is like amazing.
Yeah.
yeah, he builds the tension really, really well.
Yeah, I thought that was amazing. And I was kind of entertaining the idea of like, what if he just started with the heist scene and like completely removes the introduction of him calling on the phone or him talking to Bryan Cranston's character and
Shannon.
like him getting
Mhm.
in the car? Like, what if they just removed all that? Like an example would be like The Dark Knight, where they just show the heist scene. I just kind of wonder what the effect would
Mm.
be. It's like if you walk into this movie not knowing anything,
Mm.
it would be kind of interesting.
Mm.
Wait, you mean like just
Just the
Just
heist, not
like
the
just
phone
I
call.
I would I would think of it like they show him in the car seat, just his face, maybe a profile shot, and then he's just like waiting in the car, and then it's like boom, they open the door, the robbers open the door and get in the
mm.
car. It starts
Yeah.
the scene.
Well, I
I
I,
think
kind of
that would be
I like I feel like the it builds more tension when it's like showing that
The
just
phone
those
call
bits
scene.
before, right? Yeah, like
Mm.
because you're kind of building up towards what's going on and trying to gather more, and then like
Mm-hmm.
the drive happens and like what happens throughout the drive. I feel like I don't know. I like that it's more of a build because I think it manages the tension a lot better. But
Mm-hmm.
it is interesting. I mean the that first the phone call also like I do wonder like if you were to take that out what that would do.
Right. Uh-huh.
Well, for sorry, Ian.
Oh no, go ahead. I was just.
I was just gonna say, yeah, if they took that out, I think it would just lead to a much more exciting opening, you know. But that would also change the course of the movie, just because the tone being set in the very beginning would just be so high. Or, you know, that scene is also just like so tense just because of those first few scenes. So
Mm.
Mm,
it would be like very exciting, but you know,
mm,
throughout the course of the movie, like how could they really like draw out the tension that they do? You know, without it. So it would be a different movie. Like I think they would
yeah,
have
yeah,
to actually
exactly.
like they would have to actually capture it completely differently. So it'd be
Mm.
Yeah,
interesting.
the thing is like if they had to do that, they have to change like the other parts of the film to
Hmm.
kind of go in hand with that. But yeah,
Yeah.
you guys are totally right. Like the build up is very important for
Yeah.
this film. But yeah, I was just entertaining that idea, and because this movie is kind of like how Albert said, a little bit all over the place in terms of uh like themes, not themes, but like kind of the feeling of like what this movie is going to be about. Is this a
Yeah.
thriller? Is this just an action film? I think like
Mhm.
having that first scene and then people not knowing what the film is about was just like completely catch them off guard of like
Mm.
things to come if they were to edit like other parts of the film. But yeah,
Yeah.
it would be a completely different film.
Yeah.
But just an interesting thing I was thinking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
I,
should just. Oh, sorry.
go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that they should just make a movie where they cut out that first scene, and
Uh-huh.
then you know the movie like ends up with just him being a race car driver, like
Yeah.
Albert wants.
Become a
That would be amazing.
Rick fucking
Yeah.
racer, man. Like
Yeah.
it just threw me off.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell is going on? He's involved with mobs now and he's killing people. Uh, it's such a confusing movies. Oh, yeah. I keep saying this, but this plot is like so unconventional.
Mm.
Like, oh,
I mean, I don't think it's that unconventional. Like I don't.
it is, man. It is.
I mean,
How
I
they deliver the
I
film.
mean,
Not necessarily the plot. I think it's like how they filmed it and everything.
Mm.
Like
Yeah.
I think the plot's kind of cliche for me at least.
Ah,
yeah. So that's the opposite of what Albert's saying.
Yeah,
yeah.
but no, but how they like present it, I think that's where it's so unique. I
Mm.
haven't seen like a really film that paced like this and like the stylized version. It's very unique. Like if you give the script to any director, you'd come with like 1,000 different things, and most of them will be cliches. But I think things like this is very unique. Like
Well,
not
Mm.
many
also
people.
we should say it's based on a novel too. So
It
Mm.
is?
yeah.
Oh.
So I mean, that also
Yeah.
probably should have said that, but
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
yeah. But
In the novel, does he become a race car driver?
I don't know. I haven't read the novel. Maybe it's like Fast and the Furious was also based on the same novel.
Oh
Two
man.
different takes. Yeah.
I don't know.
But yeah, I don't know. Yoon, did you have other things that you wanted to?
Like other than that, like specific scenes, like you're talking about the elevator scene. I was gonna talk a bit about the lighting, but we could talk about it after. But yeah, I thought it was like when I watched it, I was like, this director like definitely knows what he wants. Like
Mm.
it's like everything seems like purposely done for like his kind of style and
Yeah.
the way he wanted to present it, and I think that stood out the most for me.
Yeah.
Because the plot's like I said, for me it was kind of cliche.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think like it kind of plays with those
Mhm.
tropes a little bit because, like, I mean, his name is the driver. Like I feel like he's
Mhm.
like fitting within a certain trope, kind of like you're saying, and like honestly, even that like that the opening scene and like him telling the people he's driving like his sort of like monologue or whatever about him as a driver, like there's an aspect of it that is like kind of campy, but like I'm like into it because it's sort of knowingly campy. Like it's a little maybe it's just because I know, like I've watched it a couple times, so I already know what he's gonna say. But like it does read like slightly campy to me because it feels like such a uh, like I don't know. It's not naturalistic. Like he's like overly dramatic and like moody and like he's like I give you 5 minutes and like when he restates that thing to like um Oscar Isaac and like
Cook.
yeah
Cook.
and Cook
Yeah.
like it feels like way cheesier then like when he's at least to me. So like I get what you're saying where it feels like a little bit cliche, but I think like it kind of to me it feels like like it's knowingly playing on those kinds of things,
Hmm.
Mhm. Mhm.
like even the like like that montage after the opening scene where it's like these shots of like LA and
Yeah.
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 that kind of music. It's like
Mhm.
it's like over the top and it's kind of
Yeah.
like we said, like highly stylized. And I guess I felt like
Mhm.
I see where you're coming from when you say it's kind of like cliche, but I think
Mhm.
it's done in a way that is purposeful.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And like you said, like he knows what he's doing with
Yeah.
everything. Um,
Does
but
that
yeah,
kind of go like what you said with like this neo noir type of
yeah,
like?
because
Yeah.
noir also like noir is a genre, right? So
Right.
like
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
when you are working with genre film, you're playing with the conventions, right? You're playing with the tropes,
Exactly. Mhm.
right? So like part of it is like inherently cliche.
Mhm.
It's just more like how you treat it.
Yeah, I think that's yeah, I like to think of it like that too. Like it's like a modern version of, this kind of like noir, like Hollywood film. Like I like that neo noir
Yeah.
kind of aspect. Yeah, and I think you're right. Like it's like yeah, this kind of his version of it, I guess. His version of
Yeah.
this kind of story. And I think
I
that
also haven't
yeah,
seen Leon the Professional. I should watch it.
that
Maybe that's gonna be our next. Who knows?
Yeah.
it's a good
Anyway,
film. Yeah.
so like my question here is like, so Ryan Gosling was like something else before, right? Like the
You
plot
mean?
kind of tells you that he popped out of
Oh,
nowhere
Hmm.
with the
yeah.
scorpion whatever jacket, right? And then he
Hmm.
just
Ooh, and I want to talk about that, but yeah, go ahead.
yeah. So like I was kind of confused when Shannon was like, "Oh yeah, he just popped out of nowhere." So he just I just want to say that like what's his existence in this like LA and things like
I think it's supposed to be like ambiguous.
mm, like no
Like you
name.
don't, you never know his name. Like Pyatt said, he's like he barely says anything. You would never really understand like what he's thinking or what his motives are. And
Uh
like his past is just hinted at.
Hmm.
Like he's called the fucking driver. It's like I think that's like intentional that we're supposed to be like, where did he come from? And then also at the end, it's like he drives off, and then it's an ending montage of him just driving into the night, like
Hmm.
into nowhere.
yeah.
Like he also just sort of disappears without a trace as well.
Yeah.
Mm,
I think that nomad-esque, about his
Yeah,
character, like he just pops
yeah.
up here and there. I think that's kind of like plays along with his character pretty well. It's like
mm.
ambiguous figure.
Albert, I
Yeah.
feel like you're still frustrated. You're like, I want to figure out like,
Yeah, when is he
Did
gonna
he
be a
just become a race
racer?
driver here? I think that's the closure you wanted, like.
Man.
Uh,
I know that Brandon mentioned a lot about the symbolism that the director, you know,
The
puts
jacket.
in.
Mhm.
So let's hear from Brandon about the symbolism in the movie.
I'm so bad at symbolism, but I just know just over like I remember reading about it in the past. So, um, the scorpion is like a big it's like a metaphor for him. He also mentions the scorpion and the frog fable,
Mhm.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
um, and like that fable is basically that um I think a scorpion like rides on a frog like to cross the water or something.
Mhm.
And even though the frog is like helping him, he pinch or what does he do?
He
Is he like
stings the
yeah,
frog in both
he stings
sinks.
the frog. I'm like
Yeah.
like what the fuck do scorpions do? What do you think? He stings the frog, even though he's helping him, and they both drown.
Yeah.
Right. And like I guess the takeaway there is that like even like you can't help but like hurt and be violent even when it's against your own interests.
Yeah. It's
And like
instinct that kicks in.
and that's him, right? And that's like in so like in the elevator scene, like
Ooh, the elevator scene.
he like kisses her, and then he sort of like finally kisses her. And I mean we could talk about like whether like what he meant by that kiss, because like I think like one interpretation is basically like he knows what he's about to do, so and he knows that like this is the end because she's about to witness what he's going to do. I mean I don't know, I think that's one interpretation. I think maybe you could claim that he doesn't know, but he kisses her and then he fucking like destroys this dude.
Yeah, smashes
um
his face, man.
yeah, and like in that shot it's like there's one or a couple shots, particularly like when she's like moving and like fucking dodging because she's like so frightened and like trying to process what's happening as he's doing it. There's like a shot of the back of his jacket and it's the scorpion like sort of like moving and coming alive while he's like kicking this dude in the head. And so like that's him, that's his
Instinct kicking in.
uncontrollable like violence, right? His uncontrollable like brutality, and like he does that, and then the elevator arrives at the floor, and she steps out,
Yeah.
and there's like the symbolism of them being in two worlds now, and that's where there's what Yoon was saying, like the orange and the blue. Like she's in the garage, and there's this sort of like bluish tint, and like her being in like this cold place and stepping out of like the warm orange of the elevator after she sees him.
Mm.
And like after she steps out and is like looking at him and is like what the fuck, like it's I think another shot of him from the back and the scorpion.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in that scene it's like I mean maybe you could argue that's why it is so like hyper violent, because it's like it's against his interests for her to like for him to be like this in front of her, right? Like
Yeah. If
he
he
has
actually loves her, right?
yeah, right. And like but I like he obviously he has to like protect her because this guy
Right.
might like he's gonna kill him or and potentially kill her, but still it's like a little bit over the top. But
Yeah.
yeah, so the scorpion one is just kind of like the big metaphor for him, because he's literally like the scorpion in that fable who can't help but be violent and like can't help but fight those urges even when he is now with or has met Irene and has met Benicio and is like and they represent this other version of a good life,
Yeah.
Right.
but he can't help but fight that. And I think like I want to say like most of I think the scenes in which he is like he is violent are the ones where he's wearing the jacket.
Mm.
And I don't think that, I don't know, that's what I was noticing this time around, because I had already, I remember like just over time, like reading about that scorpion metaphor and stuff, and like I think this time when I was watching, like in the scenes where he like does a job or like does something violent, he's wearing a scorpion jacket.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, even in the I think he was wearing that jacket when he was in the diner. And this guy came up to him and like, oh, there's another job if you're interested.
Yeah.
And he's like, fuck off.
And that's actually when we get, I think, our first like real taste of like, oh
Yeah.
shit, this dude's done some fucked up shit. Because he's like, I'm gonna fucking kick your teeth in,
Absolutely.
like,
And
and
make
it's like,
you swallow
okay.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh goddamn. Yeah, and also when he meets Cook again after he knew that something's wrong with the job he did with Benecio's
Like when he goes
father,
to
Standard
the
Gabriel.
club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's wearing that too.
Yeah.
He's just like, I'm gonna fucking make you swallow this bullet.
Yeah.
Fucking call Nino. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So I was
didn't
like,
notice that. Yeah.
yeah, I don't think I noticed it when I first watched it, but I just remember like reading about it a long time ago, and then definitely noticing it this time around. Yeah.
Something else you
That's
want to
interesting,
add?
man.
I don't know. Like in terms of just like in general.
Yeah.
I don't
Anything? No.
Or
I think it's like, so like Albert Brooks is like I think he's great in this, and like as
Yeah.
Bernie,
Uh-huh.
and like
How about Ron Perlman?
Ron Perlman's great.
He's
Yeah.
amazing.
But like I think Albert Brooks especially because like I mean, I don't like know his work that well, but I just know that like he is known as like, this was like a really dramatic turn for what his career usually is. Like he was this like very prominent like stand up, I think, in the 70s, and then he made a lot of I don't know if they're like rom-coms, but basically like he's like he's a comedian.
I see. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Huh.
And also like he's fucking he's Nemo. Or no, not Nemo. He's
Nino.
Yeah.
he's
Marlon.
fucking no.
Yeah.
He's Marlin. He's Marlin
Yeah.
in Finding Nemo and shit. So it's like,
Oh, really?
Oh,
yeah.
really?
So it's like you contrast like
That's
and like
very funny.
yeah. And I actually like, what's funny is I think, yeah, like right before I just typed in I forgot what I typed in, but like I either searched him or like the movie or something like that, and it's like on the Google results it like shows Drive, and then it shows like Finding Nemo right next to it. So funny, considering like like the kind of character he plays here. But yeah, he's great.
Yeah, I had no idea about his like.
Yeah, I didn't know he
That's
was in.
actually hilarious. That's amazing.
You find Drive and you get Nemo. such a different movie, man.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, like Bryan Cranston and Ron Perlman, they had their share of like mobster or like villains. So I
Yeah.
think that makes sense. Oh, very interesting. That's super cool. Yeah, I think in this film, like I didn't see any of his previous films, and I didn't know Nemo, so I was like, this guy's like super badass. Him
Yeah.
and Ron Perlman are like so good at playing this like mob boss. It's just like,
Yeah.
I thought they would like be in like a ton of like mafia films.
Yeah.
Just how they played it. That's cool. Yeah, it's cool to know.
Well, he was in Taxi Driver, but he was like
Oh.
he was kind of like almost like a dweeb, not a dweeb, but like in Taxi
Really?
Driver, like
Oh,
when
was he like the political like
yeah
with the glasses, right?
he's the one that
Oh my
basically
God, that's
is
crazy.
talking to
Yeah.
fuck, who is it? Was it Faye Dunaway? No, was it Faye Dunaway? I don't know. Like Robert De Niro's love interest. at the
her
like
name.
election offices or whatever.
Mhm.
Mm.
But
Crazy.
what else do you guys have to say?
I just kind of want to add to the like the elevator scene.
Yeah.
Like he
Yeah.
when he like pushes Carey Mulligan's character aside, like you can see like them kind of like zooming in, like focusing on the two characters, Ryan Gosling and Carey Mulligan, and the lights dim slightly so that
Yeah.
Ryan's actually in the shadows, and like Carey Mulligan's kind of illuminated. Just before he like bashes the guy's head in, and I thought, like these are little things. I
Mhm.
feel like if you give it to another director, they won't ever do something like these little tiny like details. But I really like that. Like even like playing with
Yeah.
these lights, how they focus. It like really reminded me of like Old Boy, where there's like a
Oh
scene
boy.
where he like Odesu, the main character, is like he's about to, I think, like hit this guy with the hammer,
Mm.
and then it shows like this kind of like outline dot to his face, like the projectile of how he's gonna hit it. Like these small little details are like super
Mm.
neat for me.
Hmm.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. And like I totally like, I don't know, when I saw it I was like, oh, that's super cool. Like I definitely noticed it.
Mm.
Uh, yeah, like and there's a bunch of these small details in this film that's what I like the most. And like how he present the plot, this cliche plot, I would say, for me.
Mm.
Digging at you. Huh?
Yeah, I'm just like digging at the plot, but
Oh,
yeah,
I like the score, like the parts where like one thing that I did notice this time around was like the score when they have their scenes, like when uh Ryan Gosling and Carey Mulligan have their scenes together.
Mhm.
Like it's like kind of romantic, and the score is almost like kind of like angelic, or like that sound. Like, do you guys know what I'm talking about? Like there's like this really like it's just like one note that's kind of playing.
Mm.
It's like when they have their scenes, like they're like sitting in the living room and like looking at each other, and like when they go on the drive with the kid,
Oh yeah.
like
Mhm.
there's just like a specific
Yeah.
tour. Do you know what I'm
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, it's nice and I like it, and it's very like it's basically like sort of show. It's like kind of peaceful and like
Like
angelic.
soothing and
Yeah,
yeah,
it is.
Yeah,
yeah.
and like they do that typically with those scenes with them too, because
Mhm.
it's like him being good, him being like
Mhm.
him finding something like worthwhile, or like at the end he says like it's the best thing that ever happened to me, right?
Yeah.
And then they played the same score. I want to say the only time they play it outside of those kinds of contexts are at the end when him and Bernie stab each other, which is like
Huh.
Oh, wow.
initially I'm like that's weird for them to play it then, but I'm like actually like what you were saying, Pyatt, was like they're playing it now because he's actually, like you said, like acting altruistically. He's like sacrificing himself
Yeah.
for her, and
Yeah.
like so he's being good.
Mhm.
Like even though yes he's being violent again in this one instance, they're playing that score because it's him doing this good thing
Mhm.
in connection to her, which is like the
Mhm.
Yeah.
one aspect of his life and his
Mhm.
character that is actually like not terrible and dark.
Right.
Mm.
Like completely opposite of what the scorpion represents. Like
Yeah,
complete
Mm.
altruism.
yeah,
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I didn't notice the last scene with that soundtrack.
Mhm.
That's,
Yeah.
Also, I remember when I watched it in college, like
Mhm.
I think the people I watched with, like we counted how long Ryan Gosling keeps his eyes open.
Oh
Do
yeah.
you know what I'm talking about? Like when
Yeah.
he's there after his eyes are open for so fucking long. You know what I'm talking about? He does
That's
it
so
for
funny.
like
Oh my
so
god.
long.
That's what you do when you're in college, man.
Well, I even this time when I watched it, I was like, I'm gonna keep my eyes open as long as he keeps it open, and I like failed miserably.
Shit, yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing that I want to talk about is like his face expression, though, facial expression.
Uh-huh.
Like he's supposed to be this mysterious character, so he just doesn't change his face much, right? Is that kind of a intended thing too? Do you think? Like to show his
I think so.
ambiguity,
Uh,
Yeah.
even though he
I think that plays with his
smiles,
character.
it looks fake. You know, he's like, oh, looking at the kid. Oh, who's the bad guy? How do you know that's the bad guy? And he's like smiles and looks like, you know, he's doing it for the child. He's not actually smiling himself, right?
Well,
Well,
for
I
me,
think he is, but
Hmm.
yeah, go ahead, Pat.
I just think, throughout the movie, I'm just kind of unsure. Like in the beginning, I thought he was kind of like emotionless or kind of withdrawn, but then my opinion changed after the scene where he confronts Cook at the strip club or
Hmm.
whatever, because you can kind of see that his face, is very expressionless. But then when he's beating Cook, on the ground, you can see his face becomes disheveled for like the first time, I think, in the movie. So it's like he obviously has like some like traits or attributes of like maybe like a sociopath, but
Oh.
in that scene you can see that like he may be just like maybe not expressing anything on his face just because he doesn't actually have a lot to express, because he doesn't like there's not a lot in his life. And then in that scene with Cook, you can kind of see that that's kind of what his life is like when it's like really like high strung and like really going, like he's facing these like immense like maybe like responsibilities, you could call it, just because he does act altruistically in the end. But like it's just it kind of depicts like maybe he's like just like not expressionless, or maybe he's expressionless just because when he does have like some kind of emotional engagement or some kind of reaction, like it's full tilt, like it's just like completely like disheveled, and it's just like completely wrought, and like he's just completely like losing it, so
Yeah. It is he is like it is kind of like almost funny how he'll like how expressionless. I remember that was something that like people would make, like I think that was kind of memed where it's like
Ryan Gosling
when
meme.
yeah, like when they're like, especially early on when the scenes with Irene, like she'll say something and you'll stare at her for like 5 minutes and go, yeah.
Oh,
Never
man.
closing his eyes and just staring.
He's
Yeah.
just staring at her. Yeah.
Yeah.
You need help with that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
One thing. Yeah.
even when they were going for a drive, I don't think he smiles, right?
He does.
He does?
There's like slight smirks, or like he looks
Yeah.
at Carey Mulligan's character and
Like I
just
think
has
it is genuine. Like he has genuine
Mhm.
emotion. That's the only time he has like he's kind of like I'm realizing I was gonna say like really human, and I realized that like it's like real human beings. But
You real human being.
But yeah, no, I think it's like I think he's happy then, and like I
Mm.
believe like the smile seems real to me.
Mm.
Yeah, I think I agree with Pat that there's not much that he cares about other than like Carey Mulligan's character, and it's just not many opportunities, I
And the
guess, that he
sun.
shows emotion. Yeah, and the
Mm.
sun. So
Yeah.
that may be it. I don't know. But
Yeah.
yeah, it did get like a lot of like it did remind me of like Neo a lot. I think this might be
Keanu
just
Reeves.
Keanu Reeves' limitation of acting. He doesn't have very much
Well,
emotion.
it's all Keanu.
I don't want to throw shade, but yeah, for this movie, I think it was like kind of purposely done.
Mm.
Like obviously Ryan Gosling, yeah, he just wanted to portray this ambiguous character that
And
didn't show too much emotion.
also, another thing that I want to talk about is the real human being song. It was played twice. I think it was the only song that was played twice, right? I think it was played when he was playing with the Carey Mulligan, Irene, and the kid. They're on a drive with Ryan Gosling. It played, and at the end it played also.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think those two things mean something? Like, is he trying to contrast those two scenes, or why was it played twice?
Well, wait. So was it played in the last scene?
Yeah, last scene it was played in the last
Mhm.
scene and also in the scene where they go for a drive.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. Go ahead.
So
Oh,
like the first scene when it was played is like a happy thing, right? They're like, "Oh yeah, we're happy. We're on a drive. We went to this forest and played together." And but at the end, when it was played, he was, you know, he's like bleeding from his stomach because of the stab wound, right? And just driving
Mhm.
away. Irene just, leaning on the door. It's like, oh, where the fuck is he
Right.
now? He's gone now, huh? you know, it was weird. Like, I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
why it was played in those two scenes.
Well, for me, I thought the score of the movie, like the entire movie, like they weren't. It wasn't capturing the emotion of the scene. It was capturing the emotion of maybe Ryan Gosling's character. So
Mm.
so when it was playing like a real human being, a real hero, like that song, like in the ending scene, like it's basically like it's capturing like how like Ryan Gosling's character is, and like the first scene that it's played, like it's basically just like denoting that like Ryan Gosling, like he actually has like genuine emotion, and like he is
Yeah.
like connecting with like these people on like a real level, and not like just like he's not just like some criminally like corrupt like decrepit like person, like he's like a real person with like genuine feelings, and like he is like even a good person, like you could say. So like for me, like
Yeah.
for the entire movie, like the score kind of just seemed like out of place to like match it with like the scene that it was going in, like, and that's like for every scene. It was mostly just like the music was there just to basically like create this like ambiance. Ambiance was like the word that like kept popping into my head, and like it was basically just to like capture like maybe like the emotion of like the driver's soul, like even like
Mm.
just to like I don't know, denote like how he is feeling like as a person, like how he feels about himself as a person.
So
Yeah,
like,
I feel that.
Well, like to like back that up too, like when you should listen to the song that's playing when he's chasing Nino. Like the scene itself is like very intense because he's like seeking vengeance, and he's like trying to like tie off loose ends, for this whole like ordeal. But like the song is almost positive. Like it's positive in a way that's almost like telling you like Ryan Gosling's character, like the driver, like he's feeling like good about himself because he's like doing something like for Carey Mulligan's character. Like he's seeking protection and like revenge for like this wrongdoing that like Nino and like Bernie basically like created, like for her husband. So it's just
yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, like what Brandon said with that like soothing score, I think that idea works there too. With like him and Carey Mulligan character when they're together, it has that score, and then like at the end, like when all of the loose ends are tied, like he's kind of like relieved almost. Maybe it's kind of like that feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, but definitely, I think the soundtrack, the score is something that's noticeable.
Yeah.
Definitely, like somewhat
Yeah.
out of place, but like it sets the vibe and the mood, and it could be like Ryan Gosling's what he's feeling, But yeah, it's definitely unique. I don't think it's like in the ordinary.
Hmm.
Yeah.
All right, seems like we're almost done with this movie, right? I can assume. I feel like
Mhm.
we talked
Yeah.
a lot about it. Any ending statement about this movie?
I
You
just
know,
want to see that spin-off with the race car driver.
Same, man. Same.
That'd be great.